Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is One Piece, volumes 1, 2, and 3 collected. Just recently decided to invest in these. The One Piece volume 1 that you guys saw in the really old video was actually lent to me. This is actually my own copy that I kind of waited till there was a sale on, and I was able to pick it up pretty cheap. Anyway, this video is, so real quick, I have kind of a weird obsession with One Piece. I don't like Oda's art, but I have such an enormous respect for the storytelling and the craft that he has, and just in general the success of this manga. It is hard to not to understate how successful and widespread this manga is. Like, this is the highest selling graphic medium or printed graphic medium, period. Nothing has sold more than One Piece, books, right? Nothing. No American comic, no European comic, no other manga has sold more than One Piece. It's pretty amazing. But anyhow, I wanted to showcase something that is really interesting, and it is, where are you? Yeah, chapter 12 and chapter 13 of One Piece. And to go real fast right here, this is typical manga storytelling. These issues are printed in the Shonen Jump, and they don't necessarily successfully tell a book shut story. It's always a continuing story or saga. And in this case, this is no different, though it does happen to kind of complete a story in 2 issues to a degree. Luffy, Zolo, and Nami, Luffy being the main character here of One Piece, and Zolo being his 3-sword companion, and Nami, in this part of the story at least, just being a navigator, or actually a thief at this point in time. She isn't yet their navigator. They just escaped Buggy the Clown, this hilarious looking character's pirate crew. And he's kind of screaming at his crew using typical manga techniques of hyperbole and excess and exaggeration to kind of gin up the drama. And he calls out his minion, Moji the Lion Tamer, to go out and kill them. Meanwhile, Zolo's kind of dragging Luffy while still in a cage that he was captured in over to a place, and they both pass out in the middle of a street. And they run into this dog, and this dog's pretty funny. Luffy kind of messes with him, and they get into a bit of a fight. Nami discovers both of them and surrenders the key to the cage to Luffy as sort of a, hey, my bad, bro, for what happened in the couple issues before. But funny thing is, Luffy is unable to get the key before the dog basically eats the key, and Luffy has to kind of scream at the dog to get it. And you get introduced to this character, Boodle, mayor of the port town. So Oda does this a lot. He makes literally hundreds of characters, and every single story introduces new characters. Some of them side story characters, some of them characters that occur later on. It's all over the place with One Piece. There's like thousands of characters, I think. But anyhow, he introduces and he explains who this dog is and what he is. So he was the dog of the pet food owner, and he they had a really typical man and dog relationship. Man's best friend, and he went off a while or 3 months ago. And what ended up happening is he went to the hospital and he passed away, and the dog was left behind to guard the shop. And he continued to guard the shop despite the pirate invasion and everyone else leaving. And pretty sad and tragic story. And he explains, he continues to guard the store because that's all that's left. The store is his treasure, right? And Luffy, as is shown in previous issues of One Piece, sympathizes with that. There's a lot of simplistic storytelling in One Piece, but it's done in such a way that it really can resonate with anyone of any age and any background, right? You could be in any place in the world, and One Piece can you can relate to this story. And so Moji the Lion Tamer comes by, and you get a little bit of back and forth exaggeration and comedy. He ends up destroying the cage that Luffy's in, and when Luffy bounces out, he gets freaking punched through a couple buildings, Superman style. What's left is the lion, and going into chapter 13 again, right? Like a chapter doesn't finish a story in manga. The lion and it notices the pet food store, and of course the lion wants to break in and eat the pet food store, and the dog is there to stop him. And you get this sort of emotional and almost tragic couple pages where the dog attempts to stop this lion, and of course it can't fight against him, and it gets pretty much smashed about and thrown off to the side. You get also this heartbreaking couple panels right here, explaining, the creation of the store and the relationship between the store owner and the mayor. So the dog keeps fighting, and eventually, right, you get more backstory of the dog and the pet food store. This is really, I wanted to highlight this and why this is important. Oda does this all the time. Almost every single chapter or arc of One Piece includes these sort of flashbacks, explaining even the most minor of characters, their motivations and their dreams, their life, their background, and all this other stuff. And it makes you relate so much, even with the silly art and the over-the-top, shonen kind of storytelling tropes that are in One Piece. You cannot deny the emotion that is created by this manga. And, even though I don't like the art, when I read One Piece, I immediately go through many different issues over and over again and binge it for a while, just because the emotional storytelling is just fantastic. And it's something that is definitely lost in the American comics of today, right? This was very common in American comics of the past, but you don't really see this anymore. Anyhow, so they pass on. The lion is eating some dog food, and Moji's kind of complaining about the dog. And when Luffy comes over to check on him, he sees this scene. The pet store is on fire. The dog's left barking there, as his master's treasure is destroyed, and the remnants of his master are gone now. And you could see the tears coming down the dog's eye. This is just like a tiny, tiny story in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chapters of One Piece, but it kind of highlights the basics of what Oda does, in many arcs to generate interest in characters and in the story. So you get this. This is great shonen right here. The hero shows up, stops right in front of the Moji and the lion tamer and his lion Richie. Which I think is pretty much a reference to Lionel Richie, but that's okay. Very funny. Luffy back in these days had this trend. This is long before he, got all of his crazy powers, but back in the early One Piece, he would always have this thing where, like, I'm a rubber man, and that was, like, kind of his phrase, right? And, he always says, you can't shoot me, you can't kill me with this and that, because I'm a rubber man. So Lion attempts to jump at him. Luffy does this weird twirly with his hands, grabs both sides of the lion's cheeks, and proceeds to just spin pile driver him into the ground. And then you get a great moment, right? Like Moji's like crying because he realizes Luffy has the power of the devil fruit, and he doesn't really stand a chance. And he starts screaming like, "Hey, I'll give you all the gold. Just let me go." And Luffy's like, "It's too late for apologies. That they won't bring back that dog's treasure. That's why I came to clobber you." And this is Oda does this also all the time too, which is these single panel face shots of just characters in extreme focus and determination, particularly Luffy, right? So of course he proceeds to punch him into the freaking ground. He comes back to the dog. You get a great moment here, and in this time of the story, this is before we kind of learned Nami's origin. So she just hates pirates, and she kind of talks like all kinds of shit on Luffy and screams at him and all this other stuff. And he kind of proves his how above it he is. He gives what remnants of the pet food that he could find, and he leaves it for the dog. Kind of has a nice little moment here where he kind of congratulates them, and kind of there's an understanding between them of just what it means to fight for what you love and what you treasure, right? Sort of the story of it all, right? So that's it. Just 2 chapters right there that kind of both close what would be considered a story in the old American comic days, but in manga, I think that's a pretty good deal. That's 2 issues of the weekly Shonen Jump, right? So you got that story in 2 weeks, which is pretty good, right? You got to remember that manga comes out weekly, whereas American comics are typically monthly. So, when you compare like total story over elapsed time, that's kind of the right way to approach manga versus American comics, at least in my opinion. Anyway, that's the review. Let me know what you think. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you have any comments on these chapters of One Piece or One Piece in general, or if you like me doing manga or if you don't like me doing manga, leave the comments down below, and I will see you next time.